I wanted to share with you some of my thoughts about nature and how nature in particular has helped me to return home, so to speak, to rediscover parts of my psyche that I believe have long been missing. I was inspired to write recently about nature's great initiation, I believe I titled the essay. And in the essay I talk a little bit about my own journey, my spiritual journey, my journey back to find this part of myself that was long missing, which I believe is the wild part of me, the undomesticated, the part of me that no longer wants to do what it's told, wants to march in a line and, follow the crowd. I think that every human, in particular, I'm coming from a man's perspective, I think every man has an ingrained wild man, the kind of, part of us that feels at home out here. And speaking from my experience, being out in these places, there has been a feeling of coming home, and that probably stems from years in my youth, in my childhood, of kind of venturing around from home to home, living in probably 9 or 10 maybe homes by the time I was 11, and never really feeling a sense of home. And I think there's always been kind of, in my heart, this longing to come back and back to this. And in the same way, because what is out there is also in here, so also coming back home inside of here. And I think for a long time, throughout my childhood, throughout my teenage years, I kept a lot of my expression, my emotions, my emotional expression, I kept it inwards, and never really found my way to, let that self out. The expressive part of me that wants to sing and dance and jump and scream and shout and love and all of these different, fascinating facets of the human psyche, the human self, that I kept buried for so long. And it's only really through my interactions with the natural world, my discovery of creativity, yes, that played a huge part, but actually I feel like being out in these places more so has really forced me to go inward into the recesses of my mind and maybe get back in touch with the ancestral roots, the everything that's so deeply kind of ingrained in us, that maybe by being in industry and in a city and built up areas, maybe we're so disconnected from, and have not entirely forgotten, but those calls, the call of the ancestors, the call of the trees is so faint that we struggle to tune into it. And really the development within myself has been a result of my tuning into those cries, those calls from nature. And you can hear it in the bird song, you can hear it in the creaking of the trees as they swing in the wind, you can hear it in the silence beside a mountain lake in Snowdonia. That's where I found it anyway. I mean, you may have your own method, your own way to tune into that deep voice, the cries in lots of religions and myths, mythical stories. They kind of talk about nature as the route to God, or Zeus in Greek mythology, or whatever other name you have for that being. Nature is the portal to it, to hear those voices and to hear maybe the direction that we need to go in our own lives. And really through sitting in these places over the past 5 or 6 years, I have found that I have received my own guidance and direction, whether that's from God, Zeus, I don't know, Allah, whatever it is that you call it. You know, it's all innate in my opinion, and really we find our own guidance, I think, and that's certainly what I have managed to do. And maybe it's not just me, but maybe being out here has enabled me to tune into the rest of the world and, you know, find my guidance that way, because what does the world need at this moment in time? Well, maybe that's what we need to kind of become and the direction that we need to go in. So only really by sitting out in these places and learning the art of stillness, of silence, something that I'm teaching 26 or 7-year-olds at the moment in my role as a creative practitioner. That is that is an art in itself, the art of teaching. But really I'm teaching them silence, how to be still and how to listen in here, because inside of all of us there is an element of our own truth and guidance, and it's only by being out here that we can dial into it. So it's my belief that many of the issues in this world are partly due to our increasing distance in our relationship with the natural world, with that being, whatever that is, that, you know, divinity. I think we're so separate. The bridge that divides us is incredibly long, and I think for some people it's very hard to find their way back. Hence why I'm doing what I can do on my podcast and with my work, because I think the world could greatly benefit from, you know, us humans, man and woman, getting back in touch with their wild nature. Of course, we can't go too far the other way, and we can't be too wild, otherwise we'd all be walking around with no clothes on, we'd all be stealing from each other, we'd be fighting and having sex all the time. And there's probably an element of dysfunction in that as well. But as far as I'm concerned, through my observations of the world in my 32 years of life so far, I think we've probably become too domesticated. We are well out of sync with this silence. We in many ways have forgotten who we are in here. We have everything outside. You know, many people have huge fancy homes and the latest fast cars and smartphones and all of these material goods, which there's a time and there's a place for. Of course, we need some level of comfort and ego tickling goods, but also at the same time we need to remember what we are. We need to be more in tune, collectively speaking, now with our sixth sense, our intuition, our inner knowing, which feels, and I think feelings are something that, generally speaking, the Western world is out of tune with. Feelings are something that I have embraced since I mean, always had them, of course. I've always been deeply sensitive, but actually being out here, being wild, being in nature has allowed me to further embrace that part of myself and develop traits such as empathy and sensitivity, and just that inner knowing that allows my heart to lead the way. So I think by spending more time out here, developing that sensitivity, looking around at nature and developing a deep love and a deep care for everything that is here. Trees, birds, bees, rivers, lakes, mountains, all of the animals that I come across, I feel like that kind of carries over to my love for, well, firstly for myself, because that's kind of where it all begins. Everything that I see outside is how I see within. And then that also carries over to my love for people around me, right? So I think there's a place for every one of us out here, and a place for us to just think in a deeper way about our relationship with the wild and the inner wild as well. I think the wild part of us doesn't know, doesn't recognize judgment, which enables for a more honest expression. So it enables us to express the true us without fear of what our neighbors might think, or our friends might think, or our parents might think. And that is the place I believe that we are all trying to get to. It's certainly the place that I'm trying to get to. I know what else is inside of my heart, and as much as I can express through my words now and through my photography and, you know, through my encounters with people in the physical world, there's so much more left inside of myself, and I know that I want to show it to the world because it's, you know, the most beautiful, the most raw, the most honest and authentic part of me. And that inner wild man, inner wild woman is honest. I don't think there's any place for, you know, lies and deceit and cheating and, you know, manipulating and all of these kind of perhaps more negative and darker kind of traits of us as humans. I don't believe that they are so prevalent when we express our honest and true selves in the form of our wild nature. I think there is also a confidence that forms when you take a walk outside and face fears. I mean, the outside is scary. When you watch films and read books, they kind of always seem to portray the outside, the woods, as dark and scary. But of course, having been out here now for many years, I do not believe that this is scary. I actually think the real world is way more scary. People are more scary than this. Listen. What's to be scared about here? So I think by facing fear and walking outside and going and, you know, getting lost, whatever that means. I'm never lost because I'm always here. That's my attitude. By going out, you know, and following a path, following your nose and realizing that actually I'm okay. I can find my way home. Kind of learning how to just, you know, follow the sun and keep it over your shoulder and know which direction you're moving in. It really just ingrains this I'll be okay confidence, which is attractive if you're looking for a mate, firstly. That's the kind of confidence that you can't learn and you can't gain by telling jokes and you know, whatever else you're doing. It's a true innate confidence that people can sense, and it's beautiful. And with that, I think, comes a level of maturity. You know, I came out here just a boy, 25 years old, and still a boy in my head. I still had many parts of myself that were immature and underdeveloped, and sometimes still are. The light gets shined on me sometimes and I think, oh damn, thought I'd worked on that, but clearly there's more to do. But you know, the past, well, 7 years now has been just an incredible period of growth for me, and I credit this natural world for the transition between the boy psyche and the man psyche. And that leads me on to another point based upon a few books that I've been reading recently about masculine psychology and our lack of initiation here in Western culture, which I went to university and there were initiations in sports teams, which are not the kind of initiations that I would recommend people to undergo if they're looking to grow up. Actually, I think they maybe make you grow down and, you know, lose maturity. A lot of them involve heavy drinking and engaging in just shameful and crazy acts involving, stripping down naked and having human excrement be discarded onto you, which not kind of my idea of growing up. And that's the age, 18 years old, when you think we would be maturing and learning how to function as adults, but actually for 3 to 5 years that tends to be what our adolescents do, which I think is a huge worry, to be honest, because as men we should be, courageous, we should have heart, we should have strength, inner strength, not physical strength. Of course that's important too, but I'm talking about strength in here, strength to stand your ground and make a point and not be blown over like a feeble tree would be in the wind, but actually to stand rooted and to know who we are, to know our strengths. And actually I found that those kinds of things in university really strip back your idea of who you are, and for me it left me very confused. Although university in many ways was a period of growth for me as well, it also left me feeling very lonely, very isolated, and looking around for direction. And luckily, thankfully, I managed to find my way out here in my mid-20s, and nature has really given me all of the guidance and all of the direction that I needed. It really has been the greatest initiator for me, and I feel more masculine, I feel more empowered now, having developed this relationship with the natural world that really will never die. These adventures are ingrained deeply in my psyche now and ingrained in who I am, my personality. So without the natural world, I would still be very lost, and I'd still be looking around for guidance. Maybe I'd have fallen into some of the wrong hands and been guided down some different pathway. I didn't. I'm here, and it's a path that I would recommend to anybody, particularly young men, and young men like myself who maybe grew up without half-decent masculine role models in their life. I have been quite open about the role models that I had. One was an alcoholic, one was, a drug addict and psychopath and whatever else, just incredibly immature. And then the other was, again, immature, violent. I think he went to prison twice. And, I really am blessed and thankful to have found all of this and somehow find some guidance through, writings, and hence why I like to write now and pass on what I learn. So if you're a young man, if you're a young woman, if you're lost, then I would advocate a walk outdoors in nature to anybody. I will reiterate that all of the knowledge that we need is innate, it's inside of us, it's in our minds, it's in our psyches. We know. We just need sometimes to sit on a log in a woods and be quiet for a while and learn to listen to the whispers from the deepest and darkest corners of our soul, because in there our truth lies. In there our ancestors are whispering to us. In there is the voice of God or Allah or whatever you wish to call it. It can only be heard out here in nature. And I will do whatever I can to continue sharing this wisdom that I've found a way to channel from wherever it is out there, whatever the mind is, it's coming through that. So thank you for listening. I think that is enough for today's episode. I look forward to sharing some more thoughts with you in the coming weeks now that I have my new microphone, as you have probably heard. I listened back on the camera to some sample recordings that I did, and I think it sounds flipping amazing. So hopefully I won't get any more comments and messages about the audio quality, because this is about as good as it's going to get from me. What do you think of the location? This is a beautiful woodland here in Mid Wales. I think it looks fantastic. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know some of your thoughts. Do you like the outdoor recordings? Do you prefer the indoor recordings? Please let me know in the comments. If you're interested in getting involved in some creative, some philosophical, some nature discussions, then please come over to my closed Facebook group, Finding Light Creative Community, over on Facebook. I've been opening up some conversations with questions and photographs, and also some of the members have been kind enough to post some questions in there recently. So if you have something that you would like to talk about, then come on and leave us a comment and start a conversation, because we have some very thoughtful and intelligent people in that group. So I'd like to welcome you if you want to join. What else do I need to say today? I have some photography workshops on my website for this year. I have an introduction to nature photography workshop just down the road from here in the Great Wood. It's a beautiful ancient oak woodland with 200 to 450-year-old oak trees. We're going to be spending a whole day together, and you will have access to my mind. I'll be going through a lot of the basics in a kind of classroom-based section at the start of the day, and then we'll be spending 6 hours, maybe 7 hours outdoors with our cameras, learning, communicating, having conversation, learning all of this kind of stuff, learning how to sit and just be still. There's lots of technical guidance. It's introduction to nature photography, so I'm going to be going over some of the basics of the camera as well. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, then I think this workshop will be perfect for you. In November, me and Mark Robbins still have spaces on our residential landscape photography workshop / creative retreat in Rari, Snowdonia. So if you're interested in spending 5 days immersing yourself with creativity, with nature, with photography, with two minds in me and Mark, then please head over to my website to register your interest. And I think that is all. If you would like to stay up to date with my ventures, with my podcast, with my workshops, then please head over to my website and join my newsletter. For now, I'll say goodbye and thank you again for listening.